Confessions of a young killer. A Sheboygan County teenager takes the stand describing how he and his friend killed his great-grandmother.
From chilling crimes to shocking confessions, these children have transcended all boundaries of sanity, proving that evil comes in all shapes and sizes. Brace yourself as we reveal 5 of the most evil children rotting in jail for committing heinous crimes. Number 1. Roxana Sikorski. This is Roxana Sikorski, who was adopted at a very young age by an American couple, Laureen and Jeffrey Sikorski, from a Polish orphanage. She was brought home with her little brother and sister, and the children adapted remarkably well to their new family. At 14, Roxana was bright, friendly, intelligent, and pretty outgoing, until she met a guy in his 20s on Facebook, Michael Rivera. The two bonded over orphanage trauma, and Michael seemed like Roxana's only way to escape her loneliness. Over time, they turned intimate, but Roxana's adoptive parents didn't approve of the relationship as they thought Michael was manipulating Roxana. In the end, they did what all parents do at one point. They took away Roxana's phone and prohibited her from contacting him again. They also took legal action against the man. Little did they know that their actions would trigger a most unexpected reaction. Roxana and Michael devised a horrible plan to set Michael free from the statutory charges he faced. On October 17, 2014, around 2 a.m., Roxana sneaked into her little brother's room and slashed his throat repeatedly with a sharp blade. She continued to her sister's bedroom, but all the noise had woken her parents. All the while, Roxana and Michael were constantly in contact, and he was encouraging her to execute the plan. He was even waiting outside their house. Have you guessed the plan by now? Michael had convinced Roxana to kill her entire family. Lucky for them, Roxana's plan failed when her parents awoke, and she was forced to flee the scene with her boyfriend. They were both eventually apprehended, and the case went to trial in 2016. Although Roxana was only 15, she was tried as an adult, a fact that her adoptive parents weren't happy with. In fact, her adoptive parents pleaded with the judge to give her a lenient sentence, as they were afraid her mental condition was too fragile for adult prison. She is in desperate need of continued psychological help. She is still fragile, and an adult prison would shatter her delicate world. How will sentencing her as an adult help her? Is this justice? However, she was sentenced to between 10 and 20 years behind bars. On the other hand, Michael was given a life sentence. The next kid's terrifying confession left everyone in the courtroom shocked and upset. Number 2. Antonio Barbeau. Antonio Barbeau, along with his friend, was accused of killing an elderly woman in Sheboygan Falls. The horrific murder left everyone in the small community appalled and terrified. Barbeau pleaded no contest to first-degree intentional homicide in a Sheboygan County courtroom, which was part of a plea deal. He changed his plea from not guilty of a mental disease or defect to no contest. Eventually, the judge sentenced him to life in prison with eligibility for parole for 36 years. Can you guess who the victim of this horrific crime was? It was Barbeau's great-grandmother. The 78-year-old Barbara Olson was bludgeoned to death with a hammer and hatchet in her home in September 2012. The two teenagers attacked the elderly woman intending to rob her, but weren't quick enough for the authorities. He even testified in his friend's trial, who was an accomplice in the murder. During the trial, everyone was plagued with the same question. Why did Barbeau kill his great-grandmother so brutally? A psychiatrist analyzed him and concluded that Barbeau suffered from cognitive issues that stemmed from being struck by a car when he was only 10. The injuries he suffered could be responsible for his unusual behavior. When the day of reckoning finally arrived, the courtroom was tense with anticipation. Barbeau was remorseful of his actions and overcome with emotion. Halfway through his statement, he broke down in tears, unable to continue. His lawyer stepped in and finished it for him. "I know I don't show my emotions. I myself am not sure why, but that doesn't mean I don't. I took away someone's mother, grandma, sister, friend. I had no right to do so. Because of this one action I decided to take, I've ruined so many lives." Barbeau was sent behind bars at 14 and will be eligible for parole at age 50. Coming up next is a bloodthirsty obsession that turned 2 brothers into monsters and unleashed unprecedented horror on their family. Number 3. The Beaver Brothers. The Beaver family was a secretive lot whom neighbors didn't know much of. 6 of their 7 children were homeschooled and not allowed to play outside with other kids. But despite their isolation from the real world, the children were exposed to gadgets and all the information across the internet. This is how the Bever brothers developed a deadly obsession with becoming serial killers. On the night of July 22nd, 2015, a call came into the 911 dispatch in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. Although there was no sound on the other end, first responders were sent to the address regardless. What they saw upon arriving was a scene out of a horror movie. With blood everywhere in sight, they heard a girl screaming, "Save me, save me," from inside. They rushed in only to find a 13-year-old girl who had been repeatedly stabbed, her throat slit and drenched in her own blood. As the police searched the house, they discovered the bodies of 12-year-old Daniel Beaver, the mother, April, the father, David, and two younger children, Christopher and Victoria, huddled on the bathroom floor. They had all sustained multiple stab wounds. There were only 4 survivors from the family, a 2-year-old girl, a 13-year-old girl who called for help, and 2 brothers who were caught fleeing the scene. The Beaver brothers, Michael and Robert, were immediately arrested for the horrifying murders that shook the whole town. The boys later confessed to their obsession with serial killers and how they wanted to go on a killing spree from Oklahoma to Washington. Unfortunately, the brothers were determined to carry out their horrendous plan and had collected knives they bought off the internet. Robert had also ordered guns and ammunition online to be delivered to his home. Obviously, such a delivery would have raised questions within the family. Therefore, the boys decided to start their killing spree from home one day before the ammo was to arrive. The surviving family members played an important role in the conviction of the Beaver brothers. They were both charged with 5 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. They both pled not guilty. However, Robert eventually changed his plea to guilty on all counts and was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Since Michael was still a minor, he was sentenced to 5 life sentences plus 28 years for the assault on his surviving sister. He will be eligible for parole in 2054. Brace yourself, because the next convict story will make you question everything you've always believed about parental love. Did the victim deserve what was coming for him, or was his daughter simply pure evil? Number 4. Sierra Halseth. Sierra was 16 when she planned her father's murder with her 18-year-old boyfriend, Guerrero. The details of the crime were so horrific that it shook the entire community. It all started when Sierra began dating Guerrero in June 2020 and planned to leave for Los Angeles together. Sierra's parents were opposed to the idea of her daughter leaving with Guerrero and tried to stop the two from seeing each other. But they could have never imagined the solution this young couple would come up with to be together. On April 9, 2021, Sierra and her boyfriend attacked her father, stabbed his body 70 times, and violated his body in an attempt to cover their tracks. When the two appeared in court to face the charges for this gruesome murder, the tension inside the courtroom was palpable. As the gravity of the incident weighed down on the young couple, they waited in bated breath for the judge's verdict. Aaron Guerrero looked remorseful, tearing up occasionally, but Sierra Halseth seemed unmoved by her day of reckoning. District Judge Tierra Jones sentenced Sierra and Guerrero to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 22 years. They were also ordered to pay $5,000 in restitution. Sierra alleged that her father abused her sexually and physically and forced her to drink alcohol. Sierra said in her statement, "My biological father has traumatized me. Trauma I still have to work through every day." While there is no way to justify Sierra's brutality, her statement allows us a glimpse into the mind of a traumatized girl who saw no other way to escape her father's harassment. Sierra's mother, Elizabeth Helgelian, who had divorced her husband a few years earlier, believed her daughter's allegations and pleaded with the justice system, saying, "The system failed her at every turn. They could have saved her, and they failed her." Who do you think is to blame for the murder of Sierra's father? The next case is so disturbing it might give you sleepless nights, especially if you're a teacher. Number 5. Philip Chisholm. Philip Chisholm committed the unthinkable crime of raping and stabbing his schoolteacher and violating her dead body before dumping it in the woods. He is the perfect example of a diabolical mind whose actions cannot be trusted. His stoic demeanor in court further proved that he was completely impervious to the sufferings of others and had no remorse for the brutal murder of Colleen Ritzer. Colleen Ritzer was Chisholm's math teacher in school. The school's faculty and students loved the 24-year-old who would go out of her way to help every child, and Chisholm was no exception to her. A student overheard Ritzer commending Chisholm on his drawing skills at the end of class, followed by a request to stay after school so she could prepare him for an upcoming test. Little did she know that Chisholm had a completely different plan for that day. At the end of the school day, the 14-year-old Chisholm followed Ritza into a school toilet. Wielding a box cutter, he robbed, raped, and killed her, finally rolling her body into the garbage can to dump her in the woods. His blatant disregard for his criminal actions became apparent when he took himself into town and bought a movie ticket using Ritza's credit card. When the police apprehended him, his hands were unwashed and still stained with his teacher's blood. 2 years later, Chisholm was convicted of raping Ritza inside the bathroom, but was acquitted of a second rape, committed with a tree branch in the woods where her body was dumped. Although Chisholm's lawyer argued he was suffering from severe mental illness, the judge wasn't buying any of it and dealt him a harsh blow with his verdict. Chisholm was given a life sentence with the chance of release after 25 years. He was also given an additional 40 years for the cruelty and robbery counts he faced. That's all for today, folks. Remember to like this video, subscribe to our channel and press the notification bell for more shocking courtroom videos.